Martial arts did not come from Asia, and I'm tired of people saying weird things like that. The way I understand it, it's really just noble savage mythology about the exotic Orientals that people kept up for a long time, and China and Japan have been smart enough to capitalize on idiot Westerners who swear up and down there's some kind of secret. I want to be clear that I'm not saying martial arts came from the West either, because claiming someone invented fighting is like claiming someone invented rocks. It was here before us, it will be here after us. What I will say, though, is that the systems that compiled effective techniques and codified them have largely been Western in nature, and when you see systems from the East, they're either influenced by a Western system or there was a Western equivalent to them at one point or another. Most martial arts from before the 1800s are ineffective for one reason or another, whether they were just always ineffective or through the erosion of the form over time. Most of the modern arts we think of are actually a combination of many different things that were already around for a long time, and a perfect example of this is judo. Judo is basically the good techniques from Japanese jiu-jitsu combined with Western wrestling techniques Kano studied when looking for ways to beat up bigger, stronger guys. After his style was proven to be unequivocally better than all the others, judo was born and spread. Which is why today, when you think of judo, you think of this, and not this. And more so, why when you hear the word jiu-jitsu, a Japanese word meaning gentle art, you think of a Brazilian guy named Royce or a stoner named Eddie. Additionally, you can see a form of Irish wrestling known as collar and elbow that predates judo, which, if you look, you notice is very similar to the modern iteration. Now, this could just be coincidence, but I think it's interesting enough to mention. Kyokushin, which has a reputation for being the good karate, was created in the 1960s by Mas Oyama and relied heavily on Western boxing techniques because karate had gone down the spiritual pacifism route and was rooted in the idea that one or two good punches is enough to stop a threat. Which is one of the big reasons why point sparring is such a huge thing in karate, and also a reason why when you see a Kyokushin guy versus a point sparring guy, it looks really bad. Muay Thai wasn't codified into a sport until the early 1900s, when the King of Thailand okayed a rule set that included gloves, a ring, and judging. Before that, you had Muay Baran, which if you look at today is really just Thailand's version of the WWE. It was nothing like the extremely effective art of today, and with the advent of firearms, people don't have to worry as much about guys with rope on their hands. If the hand techniques were as good as or better than Western boxing, you would still see chaya being used today. But all it is in the modern era is a pro wrestling style showcase they put on before the actual fights start. Sanda in its modern form was created by the Chinese government in the latter half of the 20th century when they realized their Tai Chi guys were getting their heads caved in by literally everybody else in the world. Instead of trying to rehabilitate their spooky woo dim mak free show fighting, they just scrapped it and built a new art from scratch using boxing, shuai jiao, and a few types of the more usable kicks from their less insane arts. Even a lot of people in China would still rather do Muay Thai or boxing instead of Sanda. And of course, if you say any of this to your local kung fu nerd, he's liable to get upset with you and bring up technicalities about Sanda being a rule set and not a martial art, as though there isn't a literal Sanda university funded by the government that takes kids and trains them in modern-day Sanda from the time they're a child all the way into adulthood. When people say martial arts originated in Asia, they typically don't even know what they're referring to, because the first recorded martial art was known as Kalari Payattu in India. People usually wield the Asian martial arts thing as some kind of virtue signal or method of seeming cultured, and yet they're only ever referring to karate or the Shaolin when they say things like that. And if you're wondering how effective it is, check back to what I said about Muay Baran. Kalari Payattu is basically just a glorified version of the Jedi battles my brother and I used to have in the backyard with those collapsible lightsabers from Toys R Us. Now, I want to say that I do understand and respect the cultural pride one may feel regarding anything that permeates the ocean and becomes a worldwide phenomenon, and I'm not trying to dump all over anyone specific. I really do love all arts, and I would gladly study under just about anything to try it. But for some strange reason, there are very few, if any, styles that come from anywhere other than Western society that are any good. It's not to say that there's none, but as I said, even the good ones seem to be heavily influenced by Europeans visiting and teaching forms of boxing or fencing. HEMA seems to be the only historical form of weapons-based fighting that survived, and only because people studied manuals and tried it until they got it right. Other than that, there's Dog Brothers FMA, which I feel like wasn't even that big at its peak. Most people in the FMA world seem to rally around dudes who don't do a ton of sparring. Before I go, I will say that it's not the end of the world that a bunch of people don't understand this. It's just that as a person who's put in so much time, effort, and energy, it gets annoying hearing people who don't even do martial arts talking about things they don't understand, and it's weird to see people who do know better becoming weebs out of nowhere for some kind of dumb social points. I love combat, and I want to do my best to add to it, regardless of whether it's a metaphysical concept acted out by physical beings, or if there was some guy one day long ago who invented homicide. I do believe, though, that in order to add to it, you have to truly understand it for what it is, because if you don't know where you're coming from, you aren't going to know where you're going. But that's all that I have have for you today. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like and also sub for more. If you have anything to say, leave a comment down below. And if you have any questions for me, hit me up on Instagram at ScottSullivanMMA. Other than that, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, good luck out there.